What is up, YouTube? It's Josh. This is the Den of Nerds. This is it, guys. This is my Rogue One review. I've got a chance now to see the movie twice. I had plenty of time to kind of decipher how I feel about it. So I want to give you this. This is basically my review slash thoughts about the movie and where I think it ranks in the Star Wars library. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was the action. Then I'm going to go into the story. Then I'm going to go into just kind of little thoughts I had about it and if I think it's better than Force Awakens and all that. So starting with the action, I mean, Gareth Edwards delivered his promise. This was a war movie. It had the vibes of a war movie. It had the cuts and the style of a war movie, and the action was just all throughout. I thought the action was absolutely incredible. In fact, the first time I saw it, I was kind of just blown away. Like, to me, it just kind of felt like action piece, action set piece, action piece, just over and over again. Action after action scene. But in the context of the film, I think it works really, really well. And it in of itself was directed amazingly and handled really, really well. So if you watch the recap I did of Celebration, which is further down in the video library and all that, but I talk about how Gareth Edwards had a really unique shooting style when he shot this movie. Sometimes he would just put the camera right on his shoulder and get into it and really, really get some really cool shots and really dig in, give us that kind of Saving Private Ryan vibe, which really worked masterfully. I thought that the direction of the action was really, really awesome. Donnie Yen's character was amazing. It was like having IP Man in the Star Wars universe. That first scene where he's like, "Let them go in peace," and then he just messes up all those stormtroopers. I mean, we saw some of it in the trailers and whatnot, but it was absolutely incredible, man. I mean, Donnie Yen does his Donnie Yen thing, but in the Star Wars universe. And I'm actually going to do a whole bunch of probably videos about Donnie Yen and the temple that they were guarding on Jeddah, which I think is just they've opened up this awesome box of Star Wars mythos, you know, going all the way back to George Lucas's first ideas about Star Wars. Very, very cool stuff, but I'll get into all that later. I thought he was incredible. Jian Wang was amazing as well. That friggin' awesome gun that he has, man. Like, I'm currently playing Star Wars Destiny Fantasy Flight game, which is absolutely nuts. They're apparently doing a Rogue One set, and I cannot wait to get my hands on that blaster. I'm sure it's going to be awesome. It seemed really, really cool. I mean, the Death Troopers were amazing, the way that they did things. Even the Stormtroopers themselves. The ATST coming through the city, Saw Gerrera's rebels. I mean, the action was really, really impressive. If you're trying to bring someone in to the Star Wars universe, I really think this film is a successful way to do that. It will show them that this is Star Wars. Emphasis on wars. So very, very cool. And of course, how can I talk about the action without talking about Lord Vader? They give us a little bit of primal Vader at the very end of the picture as he's trying to get the plans and disrupt what's going on the rebel capital ship. Very, very cool stuff, man. I mean, that scene in and of itself was amazing. When you see it the second and third time, you really get to pick apart just how methodical he cut down those guys. I mean, he literally puts a dude on the ceiling and then cuts him in half as he's passing by. Absolutely incredible. Cutting people down. Totally, totally just a terrifying presence. Perfect. Absolutely perfect and worth the price of admission. I mean, the space battles were awesome. I mean, you get to see the Ghost. On my second viewing, I did see the Ghost a little bit more. Hera seems to be kind of staying around, not Akbar, but that other Mont Calamari guy, and just kind of hanging around him, and the Y-Wings, the X-Wings, you know, all the different TIE fighters and everything that we had. So cool, man. The space battles were awesome. One of the big things that was missing from Force Awakens was space battles, you know, like with Star Wars. We want to see the war in the stars with the spaceships. And we didn't really get that in Force Awakens. I mean, it's pretty much on planets. This movie delivers on all kinds of Star Wars action, everything that you could ask for. The only thing that was missing was a legit lightsaber battle, but we kind of knew that was going to happen going into it. And you know, this is a time where there are no Jedi in the galaxy whatsoever, you know, so very, very cool stuff. So yeah, that's how I feel about the action. I'd give the action literally a 9.8 out of 10. So let's get to the story. Now the thing about the story in this movie is we really know how it ends. We know how it ends because of A New Hope. That's kind of the problem. That's kind of the issue with making a movie like this, that you kind of already know how things turn out. But within that framework, I think they crafted something that was really, really special. All of the characters are very, very cool. It's like that Dirty Dozen sort of feel, that Ocean's 11 sort of feel. But it's super unique as well. It just reeks of Star Wars. It just feels like Star Wars. Like everything from the pilot and Bodhi and Saw, which, you know, I'll get into in the third part of the video, you know, problems that might have arisen for people who aren't familiar with it, the expanded canon, I guess you could call it. But I really thought that within the framework of the film, all these characters are really awesome, and it's cool how they all come together. And just as within that framework, for them to go that Shakespearean route where they literally kill every single character, every single main character dies. I mean, this movie was very dark, like very dark. It showed you dark sides of the rebellion, guys that had to kill people, do terrible things. That last scene with Cassian and how he's talking about how all these rebels have done so many terrible things, and we did it for a cause they believed in, and they couldn't live with themselves if they walked away now without finishing it, without doing what they could for the Empire. Very, very dope. Like, it showed that darkness, but also the super dark side of the Empire. I mean, the shots where the Death Star is used to first destroy Jeddah City and then destroy the base on Scarif, man, like that kind of destruction, you know, really, really makes you feel like it's you know, Oppenheimer and, you know, the nuclear bombs and World War II and all that craziness that's going on. They really made you feel that destruction. I mean, it is nasty, man. Like, even the people in the Death Star, as they're watching it go down, are like, whoa, like, this is brutal. And Krennic, of course, just massively evil, is like, oh, it's beautiful. And, you know, the way that he, you know, talks about it, he's well aware of the machine that he built. And just... wow, man, like I really do feel, especially after seeing it a second time, that the story was really good. It was really tight. It was perfect for what they needed to accomplish. There was some, you know, member berry stuff, some pulls to nostalgia and different things like that. But it's Star Wars. I mean, you kind of knew that was going to happen. So there are only a few gripes I have with the story itself. There are a couple of things that actually kind of didn't make sense to me. And Jen's speech and, you know, the dynamic of the rebellion and how they don't necessarily want to see it through, and the, you know, that speech that she gives to all of them, which ends up not working, which is almost good that it doesn't work, because I didn't think it was a very successful speech. The speech that Cassian gives after that is way cooler, and then Jen gives a way better speech when they're actually in the Imperial shuttle going to the base on Scarif. She does a much better job. I felt like that one big speech was kind of lackluster, and there are some editing issues here and there. The pacing's just a little bit off, but nothing to really, really complain about. You know what I mean? Like, I'd probably give it an 8.5 out of 10 on the story, just because it's so ballsy, man. You know, I was talking to a lot of different people about the movie, obviously, you know, and the one thing that we all kind of said that was interesting is, I wonder how dark that first cut was. That first cut that Gareth Edwards let the Disney execs see. I really want to see it. I want to see how dark it was, because this cut, even after being Disneyfied, even after them kind of toying around with it and moving things around, it is very dark. In fact, you have to wonder if some of the reshoots were just to make it a better film, which is kind of what Disney has said, and a lot of us have not really bought into. But maybe it was. Maybe it was really just to make it a better picture. And they didn't necessarily make it any lighter, but that I don't really buy that. I think that it was even worse. It was even darker, like just terrifying, left you with really nasty feelings. Like, some of the early reports when the execs saw it were like, it's grim, it's not Star Wars, which, to a degree I can see that, but man, like this movie was still dark, even after all of that. So yeah, as far as the story is concerned, 8.5 out of 10. I really, really enjoyed it. I think it fills out the mythos of the universe and ties the prequels and the original trilogy together perfectly. Like when Jimmy Smits walks in as Bail Organa, I mean, you get that through line is bam, it's established. Like if you watch the very end of Revenge of the Sith, you watch this movie, you watch A New Hope, it's good. I think it's going to be flawless. In fact, I can't wait to do that trio of film in the very, very near future. So let's get to some other stuff with regards to the movie that maybe some people didn't like or I could see as issues. And let's just start right off the bat. Let's talk about Tarkin. So one of the things that I had heard was that going into the reshoots, one of the things that they added was a lot more Tarkin, like a lot more. Originally, they were going to have like a very small amount of him, and then they actually brought Guy Henry on to shoot more scenes with him. And if you don't know who Guy Henry is, I did a video earlier last week that kind of explained about the characters showing up in the movie, and he was one of them I mentioned. And he kind of looks like Tarkin. He does. So it's interesting because, obviously what I was expecting was when Tarkin turned around for him to be Guy Henry. I was going to be like, okay, Guy Henry. And I was still going to be okay with that. I really was. But then when they did the CGI to make this guy look exactly like Cushing and just, he was Tarkin, like, I thought it was flawless. I was blown away by it. Some people said it completely took them out of the picture. Other people said they didn't even think Tarkin was that big of a deal, so they didn't understand why he was that prominent in the picture. Man, like for me, reading Catalyst and, a lot of the other, ancillary Star Wars canon stuff, like Tarkin's a big friggin' deal. And for having him turn around and be Tarkin, like my mind was blown. So I thought that was amazing. Now, some people have a big issue with it. Is what it is. Same thing at the very end of the movie with Leia. That actress they brought in, and they did CGI work there to make her look exactly like Carrie Fisher from 77. And I didn't mind it at all. Like, I think it's perfect. At the end of the day, an actor's job is to portray a character. And however they get that character to be portrayed correctly, whether it be, practical effects, CGI, makeup, things the actor or actress can do themselves with their inflection and voice and matching movements of, pre-established characters, everything like that. That is what it is about. It has nothing to do with the actor. It is about the character. That's what their job is. They disappear, the character comes forth. That's how that shit works. And I thought that with that context, within this movie, it was flawless. I loved Tarkin, loved her there. Now, let's talk about all of the obvious nods to not only Star Wars Rebels and Clone Wars, the expanded canon, but also the other films. So some people thought this was a bit gratuitous. I mean, you see the guys from the Cantina on Tatooine, that doctor dude, the guy that has the death mark on 12 systems. You see those guys. You see the blue milk, right? I mean, you see C-3PO and R2-D2. The Black Sabers mentioned, so many different things, even deeper cut stuff than that, like that temple, right? That has to do with George Lucas's original idea for the Star Wars films and stories in general. That temple on Jeddah is such a big deal. The idea of the Kyber crystals, which comes from, very, very deep rooted canon-y stuff. Some people thought that it was grotesque, that it was like the member berries from South Park like, remember these guys from A New Hope? Oh, I remember. And, you know, I guess it just kind of depends on your personal opinion about these things, because to me, I absolutely loved every single one of them. I thought they were brilliant. I thought this movie was made for Star Wars fans. If you go deep on Star Wars fans, or on Star Wars, you will be rewarded for that love in this picture. It's like a nice warm cuddle up next to a tauntaun. It is beautiful, man. But some of the people that I was with had a lot of problems with it. Kind of the way that it is. I can't lie. I can't pretend that I had issues with it. Now, is the fanboy in me taking over a little bit? Absolutely. But that's who they made this movie for. They made it for us, for the fanboys within us all, fanboys, fangirls, and all that. So that's gonna be the last thing that I want to talk about. And some of the issues that people had with the movie were that the main characters of the film were not really established that well. They weren't really crafted that well. Now here's what's weird. So obviously I'm a hardcore nerd. I read Catalyst. I read the comics. I do all this other stuff. So I was informed of all this. But if you're not, I can see how going into this, you'd be like, well, here's a character that I don't know and don't care about. Here's another character I don't know and don't care about. And they're doing something that leads to a thing that I already know that happens. Like, I can see how that would be an issue for you. But it's impossible for me to try to experience that, to try to know what that would be like. And once again, I just have to say, I think that the movie is made in a way that rewards your love of canon. And as I've talked to a lot of different Star Wars fans, really, really mixed stuff out there. People out there think it's like the best Star Wars film. People out there think it is the worst Star Wars film. I've heard a lot of different stuff, man. You know, some people that I really, really respect are like, nah, it's the fourth or fifth worst. It's not even better than some of the prequel films, you know, and I'm not even going to go on a prequel tangent, but that's what some people are saying. But yeah, I just wanted to touch base on all of that. Overall, for me, the movie gets a 9.5 out of 10. I think it is near flawless. Now, as a picture itself, just from a cinema perspective, is it better than some of these movies? No way. No way. There's no way it's better than Force Awakens. And you can disagree with me if you want to, but Force Awakens is a nearly flawless put together movie. The cuts, the mise-en-scène, the atmosphere, the acting, everything. It is almost perfect. Empire, perfect film. Perfect film. A New Hope, perfect film, right? These are perfect movies, given, the context of what they are and what they accomplish in the sense of cinema. Cinema itself. A lot of these other films are better, but that's not exactly what you go to see Star Wars for. You're not going to see Citizen Kane in space. You're going to see fighting in space, lasers, laser swords, and crazy-ass space wizards. And within that context, this movie is freaking solid. So where does it fall? Well, for me, right now, I'd still have to give Empire the #1 spot. I'll never forget meeting Yoda for the first time when I was super young and having that whole experience. Battle on Hoth. Duh. Empire #1. Force Awakens #2. But then Rogue One comes in at #3. Now, what does that mean? That means 2 movies made without George Lucas under the Disney regime are now within the top 3 of my favorite movies of this whole franchise. And Sith is really, really close. Like, I really like Revenge of the Sith a lot. I know some people argue with me about that. But that's a rotating top 3 right there. Sith, sometimes, How I'm Feeling, will be up in there. But man, like, Rogue One did it, guys. It delivered on all fronts. Like, I honestly can't believe it. Very, very cool stuff. So that's officially my review. I'd give it a 9.5. I don't think it's better than The Force Awakens. So let me know in the comment section. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What do you think about the movie? Let's have a conversation. Love to do that in the comment section. So let's check that nerd card really quickly. And you might have guessed the question because I was being ambiguous about the temple on Jeddah. But the question is about that temple. It's referred to in the movie. And Donnie Yen's character is referred to as a guardian of it. What is the name of that temple? And where does that name come from? I've kind of danced around the answer already, but that is the question. Answer that in the comment section below. Like the video if you thought it was dope, and subscribe to the channel to get a more crazy nerdy content. Now, if you're not a big Star Wars fan, you're probably like, what happened to the Den of Nerds? It's all Star Wars lately. And I just can't help it. Like, I just can't help it. Like, I try to cover other stuff right now, but I got Star Wars on the brain like you wouldn't believe. Had I had this channel up last year when Force Awakens came out, it would have been the same thing. Star Wars would have taken over for a while. There is some cool stuff I'm looking forward to covering soon, but for now, it's just going to be Star Wars for a while. By the way, make sure to get at me on Snapchat. I've got the Den of Nerds Snapchat where I can interact with people. I drop little tidbits of information as it comes out. I'm actually going to do some snaps later today about Dragon Ball Super. So if that interests you, check out the Snapchat. As always, I hope you're having an awesome and nerdy day. See ya!